Welcome to Japan Seikatsu. I'm Ian, and today I would like to talk about 5 important things to consider before you've left your home country and made the big move to Japan. Let's get started. First, a little bit of perspective on where I'm coming from. So I've lived outside of the US for over a decade. 8 of those years were spent in Japan. And so I've reflected upon what do I wish I knew before leaving my home country that would have helped my life be smooth as an expat. Let's get started with number 1. Enjoy time with family and friends. It's so precious, and life, as we all know, moves very quickly. So you're close now. Try to maximize time with friends and family. I remember before I left to Japan, I organized a few trips with my family and siblings, and we had a wonderful time, and it was great. You will miss when you live overseas that you can no longer see them as frequently as you once could. So maximize that time now before you've moved to Japan. Number 2 is preparing the groundwork for your finances. So do you have a checking account? Do you have a US credit card? If you one day plan to be saving in Japan, would you like to invest some of that money to prepare for retirement or to save and invest in general? Well, do you have a brokerage account? Some of these things are very difficult to do once you've left the United States. So it's going to be difficult to apply for a credit card. It may be difficult to apply for a brokerage account once you've left the US. But from a taxation perspective, and I'm not a tax accountant, so this is not advice, but it is easiest from an IRS perspective for American citizens that you do your savings and your investments in US domiciled brokerage accounts. So this is all something to consider. Especially because you don't know how long this will be, right? I left unsure how long my journey outside the US would be, and here we are, more than a decade later. So in the ideal world, you have a US credit card, and you've established your credit, and you can take that with you to Japan. For example, if you need to do some holiday shopping for family and friends in the US, and you want to use US Amazon, it's probably convenient to have a US credit card. Even now, doing my taxes on TurboTax, they require a US credit card. So having this credit comes in handy. Also, when I went to get an MBA in Japan, I used my US credit card to help finance that. Not the most ideal thing, but it's not always easy to get access to credit once you've left the US. Now, the brokerage account as well, an online brokerage account, is very easy to set up when you're in the US and you have a US address. That becomes more difficult once you do leave the US. So that's something for a consideration. And then a checking account as well. Maybe you want to order an extra large amount of checks in case you need to use checks. So I did that, and those checks can last you for years, but from time to time they come in handy because some of the ways that you transfer money in the US you may not be able to do internationally or in Japan. So consider your finances and consider not just the next 6 months, but the next 3 years, 6 years, etc. Number 3 is if you have a car, I would consider selling it. The reason is that 99% of cars depreciate in value, and so the car will be sitting somewhere. You may even be paying for it to sit there, and it's just going to depreciate in value, where you could sell it, and if you do return back to your home country, you can just buy another used car at that point in time, and you haven't had the burden of absorbing that depreciation. Rather, you've just sold it and taken that cash and put it to use. So in my case, I did have a car, and it took me a while to pay it off, and I felt, I want to hold on to it. And so my father was gracious enough to let me keep it at his house. But living outside of the US, of course, I ended up not really needing that car. And so later it becomes very difficult to sell a used car once you've moved out of the country. So my recommendation would be large asset car, depreciating. Consider just selling it before you move outside of the country. Number 4 ties into my car story, but that is to declutter. In my case, I had an apartment. I had lots of items like all of us accumulate, and I held on to a lot of it. I kept it in the US, and I never ended up using any of it. And then it was quite difficult to try to throw that stuff away. So if you have a lot of items, maybe consider decluttering them now. We've all been there where you put things into a box, you don't use it for a year, you come back and you just realize, you probably could have thrown that or recycled those items a year ago. So do some deep thought and consider decluttering now rather than later. 5 is dental care or health care. So if you have a doctor that you trust and you've worked with, maybe get that checkup now before you leave and move to Japan. I cannot overemphasize how comfortable it is to be able to communicate with a doctor in your native language, especially when you know the doctor. And that's the same with dental care. So, going to the dentist is stressful enough, but again, doing it in a foreign language just adds an additional layer of stress. So get that dental care, check done. Get that that doctor's visit done. Now, having said that, in Japan, you may find that some of these items are less expensive. Dental care, for example. So there's a balance there. But if you do value being able to communicate with your healthcare professional in your native language, and maybe get those items done now before you move to Japan. Well, I hope those were helpful. There's some lessons from mistakes that I made that I hope that you're able to avoid. And as always, please, if you have questions, ask them down below in the comment section. And if you have suggestions for the community, please do put them down in the comment section below so that we can benefit the community. As always, please be sure to hit like and subscribe. The reason is we want to build this community as big as possible in order to help as many people as possible. So thank you for your time. Take care.